Why is nobody stopping Putin? It's 2023, and the ongoing conflict in the region between Russia and its neighbors remains a significant concern. Despite signing various peace agreements, Putin's government continues using military force to assert control. Many are asking why nobody is stopping Putin from continuing this war. This video will answer the question and what we can learn and do to address this ongoing crisis and prevent further escalation. Before looking at why anyone is not stopping Putin, let's look at how he got into power. Russian President Vladimir Putin's route to power combines brutal pragmatism and sheer luck. Putin came to power when Russia was in chaos, and the country needed a strong leader to bring stability and order. Putin was known for his tough stance on domestic and foreign policy, and he was seen as a man who could bring stability to a country that had experienced years of political and economic turmoil. This is where it all started. Putin's appointment was seen as a promotion, and he quickly rose through the ranks of the Russian government. You could be wondering, how did Putin build his territory and power? Well, in 1999, when Chechen militants invaded Dagestan, a neighboring region of Chechnya, Putin, then Prime Minister, quickly launched a military campaign to quell the fighting in Dagestan. The campaign succeeded, and Putin's tough stance on terrorism won him widespread public support. The political vacuum aided Putin's rise to power after Yeltsin's resignation.
Сегодня, 31 декабря 1999 года, первый президент России принял решение уйти в отставку. Он просил меня обратиться к стране. Дорогие россияне, дорогие соотечественники.
The Russian people were disillusioned with their political leaders, and many saw Putin as a fresh face who could change the country. To expand his powers, Putin targeted media mogul Vladimir Guzinsky, oil tycoon Mikhail Khodorkovsky, and other prominent oligarchs. Putin accused them of corruption and other crimes, and he used the legal system to strip them of their assets and influence. Today, Putin remains one of the world's most potent leaders. According to Forbes, in fact, Vladimir Putin was ranked as the most powerful person in the world by Forbes magazine for 4 consecutive years, from 2013 to 2016. And now he's the second most powerful person in the world, just after Xi Jinping. So, what makes him still in power, and why isn't nobody stopping him now? The first reason why Putin remains in power is his control over the media. Putin has great political control through his domination of the Russian media, which he uses to promote his image and suppress dissent. As a result of Putin's increasingly individualistic style of rule, repressions have not only intensified but also lost some of the previous obscurity in recent years. Putin's government has consolidated ownership of major media outlets in Russia, ensuring they are friendly to his government. One of the oldest independent newspapers in Russia, Novaya Gazeta, said on March 28 last year that it would cease publication until the conflict in Ukraine was resolved. Roskomnadzor, Russia's government media watchdog, had just issued a second warning for alleged violations of the nation's foreign agent statute, which might lead to a complete shutdown. Remaining independent media outlets in Russia, including the liberal radio station Echo Moskvy, the television network TV Rain, and the bilingual news website Meduza, have been blocked or shut down by the Russian government since the start of the conflict. You see, the Russian government controls most major television stations in the country, including Channel 1, the most watched channel in Russia. These stations regularly broadcast pro-Putin messages and often ignore opposition voices. This has contributed to Putin's high approval ratings among the Russian population. Putin's tight grip over the media has made it impossible for any opposition party or candidate to build enough support or momentum to challenge his leadership. Secondly, why anyone is not stopping Putin is that Putin's regime has successfully propagated the narrative that he is the only person who can guarantee Russia's stability and economic security. Remember during his first 2 terms when he signed into law a series of liberal economic reforms, such as the flat income tax of 13%, reduced profits tax, and new land and civil codes? Result? Within that period, poverty in Russia was reduced by more than half, and the real GDP has increased since. With propaganda techniques such as repeating simple and reliable slogans like "stability above all," Putin has convinced many who have otherwise lost faith in the viability of democracy that he is the only one that can safeguard Russian prosperity and combat corruption. Thirdly, why is anyone not stopping Putin? Is that Putin has created an image of toughness and machismo, and this has endeared him to many Russians. Putin embraces the traditional values of Russia in his speeches and portrays himself as a strong, decisive, and unwavering leader. For example, his speeches following Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and during the military campaign in Syria in 2015 were seen by many as bolstering his image as a strong leader.
Instead of the triumph of democracy and progress, we got violence, poverty, and social disaster. And nobody cares a bit about human rights, including the right to life.
Other speeches where he spoke about defending Russia's interests, such as at the annual Valdai Discussion Club, have also been viewed as influential in projecting strength. He has also been known to use rhetoric that paints Russia as a victim of external threats, reinforcing that he is a protector and defender of the Russian people. My viewers, from the 48 Laws of Power book by Robert Greene, your physical appearance matters to how people treat you. Let's look at Putin physically. Well, Putin has posed for numerous photo shoots that depict him as a strong, rugged, and action-oriented leader. These photos often show Putin engaged in hunting, fishing, and outdoor sports, emphasizing his physical prowess and masculinity. On to the fifth thing that makes Putin superior to be stopped by anyone is his military. Putin has invested heavily in military modernization and has been involved in several high-profile military conflicts, including the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the ongoing intervention in Syria. This military posturing has helped reinforce the image of Putin as a strong and decisive leader willing to use force to secure Russia's interests. His folksy and simple lifestyle also strengthened his ties to the people even more. This image can be hard to topple, as most Russians admire the cult of personality that Putin has created around him. Another reason why no one is stopping Putin is that Putin has managed to maintain power through his tight control and manipulation of the judiciary and his ability to manipulate election outcomes. The Putin regime has used substantial control over the judiciary to ensure that any legal challenges to his rule are quashed. In addition, his government manipulates the outcome of elections by disqualifying rivals on dubious grounds, rigging the media to favor his candidacy, creating laws that bar opposition candidates from standing, and criminalizing political opposition. This has created a situation where opposition parties and candidates are virtually non-existent. Lastly, why nobody is not stopping Putin is that Putin's foreign policy has been geared towards Russia's strategic interests and has helped shape its image at home and internationally. Putin's annexation of Crimea was a massive win among the Russian people, and many outside Russia viewed it as a demonstration of Russian power and influence.
Крым – это наше общее достояние и важнейший фактор стабильности в регионе. И эта стратегическая территория должна находиться под сильным, устойчивым суверенитетом, который по факту может быть только российским сегодня.
Putin has positioned Russia as a world player on the global stage, casting himself as a strong, committed leader and a defender of traditional values. As evidenced by events, Putin is becoming nearly impossible to stop when he is cornered. He isn't deterred by the notion that he runs the risk of alienating his Commonwealth of Independent States (CIS) allies who are starting to fear him. Kazakhstan is already taking a different course, and that he will not be able to become the curator of a sizable imagined Eurasian empire. Such images played into nationalist sentiment and created an external context of legitimacy for the Putin regime. Still, in 2023, we see an increasingly authoritarian and centralized state that is unlikely to change anytime soon and might affect other countries' economies. To salvage yourself from these economic turbulences, subscribe to my channel now. But has there anything been done to stop Putin? Recently, several proposals have been put up that risk drawing NATO or the US into the fight. The most risky is a no-fly zone, supported by several ex-US military personnel and civilian government leaders. It would be necessary for American and NATO jets to patrol above Ukrainian territory well within the range of Russian air defenses to enforce a no-fly zone and to shoot down any Russian aircraft that violated it. But Putin warned that attempts to impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine would be considered a party to the conflict.
Сейчас мы слышим, что нужно сделать бесполетную зону на территории Украины. Сделать это невозможно на самой территории Украины. Можно только с территории каких-то соседних государств. Но любое движение в этом направлении будет нами рассматриваться как участие в вооруженном конфликте той страны, с территории которой будут создаваться угрозы для наших военнослужащих.
Poland recently broached the notion of delivering its MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine via the United States, but the Pentagon quickly shot that suggestion down as another potential escalation. The United States and its allies and partners have heavily leaned on economic and financial warfare to try and convince Moscow to bend to avert a major international crisis and concurrently stop Russia from eroding Ukraine's sovereignty. Even though Russia might fail in its military goals and will likely experience increasing financial strain, as a member of the United Nations Security Council, it can veto resolutions that affect global affairs and hurt people worldwide. My viewers, is it possible to stop Putin? Well, Putin was stopped earlier, but it was all in vain. In 2008, Putin was forced to resign as president due to term limits. However, Putin remained a dominant political figure in Russia. Putin was elected prime minister under his successor, Dmitry Medvedev, and continued to wield significant influence over Russia's political landscape. So, is there any hope of stopping Putin? You see, Putin's willingness to take this risk suggests his position is less secure than at the start of the invasion. He responded to the public criticism of his poor military leadership by ultra-nationalists and the apparent scarcity of military forces on the ground. Putin is aware of the dangers elites might bring in a dictatorship. In response to the costs of this conflict, there will need to be a push for reform from the nobility, potentially from the military or security forces. Putin will eventually need to be stopped inside of Russia. The Russian people or the Russian elite are the only ones with the power to deter Vladimir Putin. Putin's command to mobilize was a calculated error that led to demonstrations. Additionally, it confirmed Russia's geopolitical and military vulnerability. If anyone were to stop Putin, it should be the Russian citizens. But with careful strategic planning and a commitment to democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, it is possible to create an environment less susceptible to Putin's influence and more focused on fostering cooperation and common ground. Now, while Putin's tactics and leadership style may not be universally beneficial or applicable, discussing and learning about what we can learn from his legacy is essential. Well, what can we learn from Putin? Putin's confidence and long-term power have a lot of lessons that we can learn in leadership and politics. Firstly, Putin has shown the importance of building a solid political image. As a leader, projecting confidence and strength helps to gain the support of the people, even if they disagree with some of your policies. So, building a solid brand and image in politics and leadership is essential. Secondly, Putin's ability to maintain control of the narrative in Russia and control the media has helped him to keep his popularity and support, even when Russia is facing economic and political challenges. Lastly, Putin has been consistent in his leadership, which has helped to build trust and confidence among the people. Consistency in leadership can also help to maintain consistent policies and leadership trends. The influential people of this world have a lot to teach us about success, power, and money. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Click that next video and let us learn together.